they don't make movies which are believable. They make them how they would prefer the world to be. And Russell T Davies has recently said this about history. Like, we don't care what history was. We want to look back and we will make Isaac Newton a different person because that's how history would have been better. It's like, no, history's fixed. That's how it is. That's how things should be because that's how it was. And if you change things, then nobody cares because you take people out of reality. And you can argue that escapism is what you want from it, but you have to obey the rules of the universe. And so when you use historical characters, if you change them, it just doesn't work. And it's like they can't differentiate the idea of it's a complex
Right, the
thing.
difference between escapism, because one could make the argument that, like, well, isn't it just for movies, entertainment? They're there for us to have escapism. Couldn't you say having a black Little Mermaid is a form of escapism for a certain group, or having Rachel Zegler as Snow White, completely redefining the role, everything she said in her public appearances. Well, isn't that a form of escapism for like a half Latina, uh, the half Latina community?
Yeah, the half Polish.
The half
I
Polish
I will
community.
never understand why she. Well, I will understand why she never says that she's Polish. Like, she's as much Polish as she is Latina,
I don't
but
think
we
she's
don't
ever
talk about
mentioned
that.
it.
We don't talk about that because it's not beneficial within Hollywood. And the moment you do that, it's like, well, I'm really proud of being Latina. It's like, yeah, but all the Latinas are saying you're not Latina, and then you're saying, well, that doesn't matter. When she was doing West Side Story, all the Puerto Ricans were like, yeah, but can we have like a Puerto Rican actress? We got loads of Puerto Rican actresses. They could fulfill this role. And she's like, no, it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I was born in America. My mother's Colombian and my father was Polish, and I'm now playing a Puerto Rican. But it doesn't matter that I'm not Puerto Rican. I'm still representing you. And they get Snow White, which is like, well, why does representation matter? And this is the you have multiple times where on the one hand, she will say representation is really important. I'm Latina. I'm representing this group. And on to that group, she's going, yeah, but I don't need to represent you because I'm not you. It is so bizarre.
This was such an amazing video. If you guys haven't watched it, go to Disparu's channel on YouTube and watch his Rachel Zegler Halle Berry explain Disney's failure. And you perfectly, you're so brutal in your honesty, and you break down their interview. It's Rachel Zegler and well, it's Halle Bailey. I keep saying Halle Berry. Halle Bailey, the Black Little Mermaid, interviewing Rachel Zegler, and you're commenting. You're basically like, yeah, all they're doing is complimenting each other, patting each other on the back, be like, "You're so beautiful, you're so brave. I cried every time you spoke," which is much different from typically a journalist would interview them, or maybe this is to make up for the fact that she spoke with too many journalists and she was too honest, and she screwed up a lot of her. Like, I think of this is kind of iconic. Everyone kind of saw this interview where she was like, yeah, the princess isn't gonna save her. Who knows? Maybe all the prince's scenes will be cut out. Who knows? And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, this doesn't sound at all like Snow White. And I just
Journalists deliberately get them in trouble. Like, they will
because
egg
they
them
want the
on.
clip. It's like, do they
Yes.
wanna make the actors look bad, or do they just
Yes.
know what's gonna get a lot of
100%.
clips?
Well, they just want views on their website, and so you see them in the clips where she's like, "Yeah, weird, and then you hear a journalist in the background, "Yeah, it's very weird, isn't it? It's very weird. Go on, say something else. Say something we
Oh.
can clip. Get us a quote." And they just agree. It does. I think you could say anything to a journalist, like no matter how deranged it was, they'd just be like, "Yeah, I completely agree. Go on, say something else." And so it definitely doesn't help. But you still have the point about individual responsibility where she's the person saying it, she's the person believes it. And so even if she's getting egged on, even if she's doing it because
Mm.
somebody's encouraging her to say it, that's what she thinks. And you've seen it in West Side Story. The moment somebody kicks off, she starts to attack them. But the moment she's talking to somebody else who's neutral, oh, it's so important representation. I think this is amazing. There was actually a case where she couldn't get into an award ceremony. And so social media kicked off, how dare you not allow like the first Latina actress to represent these people into this award ceremony? And she ended up in like a week presenting something at that awards. So she
Wow.
gets into positions on red carpets via identity alone. And that's one of the clips that I have. She's like, And yeah, I never thought I'd be here. Dreams really can come true really fast too. And that is because she wasn't supposed to be there at the time. And when, like, all the clips about, yeah, this is the story representation and it matters, is because it allowed her to get into a position she couldn't normally. And I think that's horrific. I don't care who's in what role. I don't care really what you do. If it's a historical figure or a figure with the source material, I think you should respect that. Like, I think James Bond should be a Brit because
Yep.
James Bond is British.
And a
I think,
dude.
well, exactly. So Harry Potter, one of the reasons that people like Harry Potter, that was absorbed into Harry Potter, is because it was a British school full of British people. And so if you had foreign actors in, it wouldn't have been British, and it wouldn't have created the environment that it did in the movie. And it was J.K. Rowling that said everybody that acts in this needs to be British because it's a British school and it wouldn't make sense otherwise, given the time period and where it's set. I think
What
that's
about
fine.
no exchange students, Disparu?
Well,
No,
exactly.
no
They,
migrants who can't speak English?
you played Hogwarts Legacy. We had someone from like Zimbabwe as a teacher, and it's like, where did she go when it came to the movies and the law and the books? It's like you can't go back in time and change things that then just vanish. Rings of power. There's always the question, what happened to them because they weren't in the movies or the books? And
Wow.
they don't care about the timeline. They take the Davis attitude of, we will look back in history and imagine it how we think it would have been better. It's like, yeah, but what if it isn't? That's just your opinion, and it doesn't make sense. And the more things don't make sense, the less people care about something.
I've become more and more aware, like, especially just how you broke down Rachel Zegler here. It's not about like this whole the diversity inclusion movement in Hollywood and everywhere else. It's ultimately it's not about representing the group, right? Because even Rachel Zegler, you have a clip here in this video where you're like, I don't need she's basically saying, I don't really speak the language. I don't really eat the food.
Yeah,
She's only half whatever Latina. I don't even know what kind of Latina she is, but she's only half. She never mentions that she's
she's
Polish.
not Puerto Rican at all.
Puerto Rican, right. And it's not about representing any type of community. It's just Hollywood going, great. Well, now these people in Hollywood have the leg up. Now, if you're black, gay, trans, Hispanic in Hollywood, guess what? It's your time to shine. And like, well, screw you, white people. Maybe you'll get another go in 50 or so years.
Oh,
It's not about no. It's you. It's these actors are just out for themselves. At the end of the day,
yes.
they don't care about representing anything.
I have never heard an actor. I've never heard an actor who is from one of these preferred groups who has ever spoken about another group. So, like, at no point has she ever gone, I think that we shouldn't have the dwarves and Snow White. She didn't say that. The dwarf said that we shouldn't have the dwarves and Snow White because they would have been competition for his job. And it
Ooh,
is such an unusual. One thing I don't think Americans realize is how isolated your culture is from the rest of the world. So you group people up into the categories. So you got like black, white, Latina, and it's not how the rest of the world does it. Like in Europe, everybody's white, and so like that's the ancestry of Europe. So it wouldn't make any sense. So we have English, Scottish, Welsh, French, German, and to say that I'm German would be bizarre. Like the Germans would reject it,
right.
I would reject it. It's the same thing when Americans go, "I'm Italian." It's like, well, you've never been to Italy. You you've lived in
But you
America
gotta
your entire
try my
life.
mom's sauce.
Yeah, but you're like, for some reason I'm Italian. It's like, okay, it doesn't make sense to Italians, and I get that with this. Like she's going, I'm Latina. It's like, okay, so your mom is from a continent, so you're removed from it yourself. But then she go, I represent this specific country. It's like, no, it would be like a German
Mm,
person saying they're me. It doesn't make any sense to the world, and
right.
I don't know whether she understands that or whether I think it's more the fact that she's grown up throughout a culture where throughout all of Hollywood, every role she's got is because she was of a group, and so she just thinks it's great. Everyone tells
It's
her it's
so
great.
true. My God, it's like I go around because you get used to it. You grow up in this country,
Yeah,
I go around saying I'm half German, I'm half Norwegian, but it's like I've never been to Norway. I've never been to
yeah.
Germany. My dad's taught me zero German. Zero. We ate zero German food in our house growing up. Same thing. My grandma would make some Norwegian desserts and stuff, and like I have her old Krumkrage machine. Like it's hot. It's like super. It's like basically heavy metal. I almost broke my toe on it the other day cleaning up, but it's like, oh, I really have none of this culture in my life. So it's like it would be just like, yeah, your family used to it would be just as insane as you saying like, yeah, I'm German, but like, no, you look, you
Yeah.
sound like there's nothing German about you.
And that's the thing. We go off culture. And the easiest way to become part of a culture is to live inside the culture. So most Germans are German. Because that's the only thing they've ever known. And so I understand how it happens, but then you get somebody who's using the American view, which is like more general, to apply to a specific thing, and it doesn't work. Like her mom's Colombian, her dad's Polish, so what's that got to do with Puerto Rico? And yet, if I can get millions of dollars by saying I'm Puerto Rican, I'm going to say I'm Puerto Rican.
Of
And if
course.
the Puerto Ricans have a problem with it, well, in which case you're just a bigot. And does it really matter if I'm part of your culture, part of your country, part of your food, part of anything else? I'm just going to say you're a bigot, and that should humiliate you enough to shut you up. And
Right.
for me, that's the most, the worst thing about it is, in the 90s and the early 2000s, I remember a wave where it was like, we need to get rid of shame. You shouldn't be shaming people. You shouldn't be judging people. And even now, you will see people that go, I'm going to say this thing, which is negative, but no judgment, right? I mean, you can do it. I think it's horrific. I think it's the worst thing in the world, but no judgment. It's like, yeah, judgment didn't go away. It's just one side kept doing it. And so she will say,
Yeah.
you can't judge me for being in this movie. But if you say anything about me being in this movie, I will judge you. I will shame you.
You're
And
toxic. Yeah.
yeah, and that's how one side wins. They take away somebody else's weapons and use it as themselves. And I think that's what's happened in these interviews. It's just framed in a way where I'm the virtuous one when really it's all about greed and self-interest.
Right. Like, ooh, I can say I can attach myself to one of these victim groups. And if you check me on it, well, how Hispanic are you? Well, there's a lot of different ways to be Colombian or Puerto Rican or whatever, and you can't tell me how to embrace my culture. Yikes. It used
Well,
to
that was a
be
strange thing. Like over here, Latino isn't a group. I've never met a Latino person in England, right? And then so I had to look into what it was, and I'm still not sure, to be honest, because it's so bizarre. It's like from South Africa, but they have to speak Spanish, but then they're not in South American, but they have to speak Spanish, but they're not in South America. They have to be specifically in North America while speaking Spanish, but being from South America. It's such a bizarre, fabricated group. I don't really get it.
It used to be I remember going to the store with my mom in, I guess, the '90s, and she'd always pick up a National Enquirer, and it was exciting. I would, like, read them after she was done, and I'd be like, "Oh," 'cause you get any little scrap of celebrity news, like, "Oh, here's them walking out of a store. Celebrities, they're just like us. Wow, here's them with their kids." You'd never see what their kids were like. You'd never see them in, like, a day-to-day, and you never really hear from them, so it was exciting, and now and I look at someone like Rachel Zegler, and I look at the interviews she did earlier on trying to promote Snow White, and I'm like, who is she trying to impress? Like, is she trying to impress the studios, like her boss? Is she trying to impress other actors? Is she trying to give what she thinks social media will praise her for? Or is this genuinely how she feels, or a combination?
See, it's the eternal argument. Is this person just doing what they're told, or do they genuinely believe it? I don't really think it matters. I think if you say something, that it doesn't really matter why you're doing it, unless somebody's there literally forcing you on pain of, like, you'll get fired or something. Then you don't really. If you're doing it voluntarily to try and please somebody, you're still responsible. You're the one that decided to do the action, so individual responsibility plays the part. So I don't really think it matters whether the studio's telling her to do it or whether she's voluntarily doing it, just because of this is what Hollywood does. Although, like, if I had to say why I think it was, I think that's it. I think essentially she got her roles because of what she is, not what she can do. And if you get that repeatedly, you begin to think that's important because that's what everybody around you values. And so I think it's natural that you would not only think that, but the people who speak out against it, you think they're the tiny group, right? Only a few handful of bigots could think this, because every single person you've ever met throughout your entire career thinks the same. And so anyone that says anything different, must be the unusual. They must be horrible. As she said in her interview, that was the interesting thing about the interview, actually. At the start, it was all like praising each other and we should, isn't Disney great? And then at the end, it's like, yeah, but all the people that disagree with us, they're actually just really sad at home and miserable. Whereas I'm making a movie. And so I can understand why I've got a great life, but in their sad, miserable lives, they may speak out against me. And it's like,
They don't know how
okay,
they sound.
you've
They
not
don't
changed then, have you?
they don't hear themselves, and, like, they're both like, we kind of like, "We have to have grace for these toxic fans online." Maybe they're just having a bad
I've got to be
day.
present in the moment and imagine that
Look at
I'm just
look
making
at
a
these
movie.
thousands of comments which all represent people having a bad day.
Yeah.
And I have good days because I am an important actress. Okay, so I'm so jumping all over the place, but when you were breaking down the Rachel Zegler, Halle Bailey pregnancy brain interview, what do you attribute her switching gears into then now with Halle Bailey saying, well, yeah, I have to respect the fans, and I'm one of them, and, she's much more toned down. She's much more subdued. Again, it's like, is that her going, "Wow, I'm getting a lot of bad press. I need to change my tune," or is it her handlers saying, "You need to, I don't know, we're gonna have a Halle Bailey interview. You just fucking sound normal."
I
And
I
is it
I think it's a
enough?
I think it's a combination of things because essentially, yeah, there was a massive backlash, and the positive of that was they were on strike at the time, so she couldn't respond. If she could have responded at that time, oh, like, I'm sure it would have exploded to 10 times the size. But so it allowed everyone to have time to look at it and sort of analyze the situation and realize maybe we should do something about this. I even think because it was at D23, most of the interviews and some of the press tours for it. I think they were talking points that she was given because Gal Gadot was saying the same thing. She was saying it behind her. She just didn't say it as annoyingly or as confidently and didn't sort of extrapolate it on a much. So it never really hit the same thing. And also, we know her from previous movies, so I think she has a bit of
She
leniency
didn't get
there.
nearly as much heat.
Yeah. But if you notice, there was things like she's not. One would go, she's not going to be saved by the prince, and then Rachel would dive in the way of like the bullet and go, she's not going to be saved by the prince, and we're going to delete all of his scenes. And so she kind of took the main force of it as Gal Gadot just kind of dropped the bomb and walked off. So I think there were definitely talking points. But like I say, I think this is Hollywood. Everyone they talk to all thinks it's the same thing. They genuinely think that's what people want to hear. They're not trying to piss people off. They just don't care if they piss the bigots off because they think they're a small enough audience that it won't change anything. And then they saw the backlash. And so now we suddenly this is massive. This was like one of the biggest topics for weeks that happened during the strikes. And so it's going to make anybody take pause. The thing about the interview is, at the start, she started going, "Oh, I'm a big fan of Disney. I love everything they've made for the last 100 years." Directly contradicts stuff she said previously, which wasn't a talking point, because no one's going to give you a talking point about how you were scared about Snow White, and you saw it once, never watched it again. Like that, nobody's going to want you to say that. It's now like, no, I'm a big, massive fan. The issue is, at the end of it, she's still like, yeah, but I'm making a movie though, and they're just unhappy, sad bigots. And so
They're just peasants. They're just
well,
peons.
it's the way it came across. It's like, I'm sure they're, I'm so thankful, I'm so present. I'm sure they're having a bad day, whereas I'm making a movie. And I think that was meant to be her. I think that's probably as far as she can go. Of being like, oh no, it's all fine. Like, she was genuinely trying to go, I don't care about any of this stuff. And it still comes across as that you're arrogant, egotistical, and better than everybody else. It's like, I'm making a movie though, aren't I amazing? Oh. So I think it was her trying to save her image. I think it was them also would have told her, you need to tone this down. And I just don't think she's capable of it. Like, I think that interview was the best she could do.
You have to remember, like, yeah, she's 22. Of course, she's just consistently taking almost like the opposite point. It's like in all of her last interviews, she was very anti-man, very anti, you know, the strong qualities that we love about men, like chivalry and like romance and pining courtship, and and like, but she'll say in the next breath, but I make things that bring people together. It's like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
we're making movies where we're connecting people. It's like, how are you able to do the mental gymnastics to completely leave all men, or like, I guess non-feminist men, cis white, like all the men that are very toxic right now. It's like, you think your movie, your career, your life is going to be a success? Well, I'll just ignore men. I think I can get to where I need to go in life with the help of any men, or any men being fans of me. It's does she think it's just like all gonna be feminists and people of color supporting her, and she'll do just fine on that? I just don't think I have to remember, she's 22. She's not thinking of,
Come
she
on.
just doesn't know.
22 is an adult. You've been an adult for a long time. People used to pop out babies long before
True.
22, get married long before 22.
That's true.
There's a very weird, and it's a very recent thing of infantilizing people long into their 20s. It's like, oh, you only become an adult at 28? What? What
Yeah.
was the age of, I can't remember what it was. It was like, the word spinster used to mean if you weren't married by 24, you were a spinster.
Oh God, that's everyone now.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So maybe culture isn't great now compared to where it used to be. Maybe the changes aren't for the best, and maybe infantilizing people until they're 28 and go, well, you can only make decisions and be responsible for your actions then isn't a good idea. The thing is, as I've got older, I'm like, I'm as mentally capable now as I was at 15. That's just how it works. I
Really?
don't feel like I've changed. No, I've learned more stuff. You gain from experience, and my attitudes have changed over time because of that experience. But there's nothing about like mental acuity or reason, like ability to reason, that was different from me now as a teenager. I just have had more time to consume more knowledge and come up with different opinions because of it. And I think when you come down to I think one of the benefits of tradition is that you don't need to generate everything yourself. There's a thing that you see, especially on TikTok videos and stuff, where people are like rediscovering things that have existed for thousands of years. Like there's one where it's like
Look, a wheel.
well, no, one was literally like, I only bang people I'm sexually attracted to. It's like, what?
And they'll give it a name.
Normal?
They'll give it a title. I'm like, I'm sapiosexual. I'm only attracted to your mind. Wow, we've always been doing that. We just didn't call it something.
Exactly. The Zoomers are literally because they've deconstructed everything, they're literally reconstructing society from its foundations. So it's like, imagine if we had something where people would commit to one person and stay with them for the rest of their lives. We could call it something like Mirage or something. They are literally reinventing all of society. It's like, you don't have to do that. We did it.
But God, imagine if like women like didn't have to work, and they really would just, it's like OnlyFans, but it's just with one man, and the one man
Yes.
pays for your life, and
Yeah, you can stay at home.
Sending nudes to the one man, and he takes care of you, and you don't have to worry about currying favor with like a bunch of dudes to keep you. I'm like, we had that. It was already a thing.
Yeah, and you could like stay at home and do something. I don't know what you'd do. Maybe you'd like look after whatever was produced by the fact that you were in a relationship with somebody.
Like,
I don't know. Maybe we could produce like little people that then grew up and carried on into the future.
Instead of working 9 to 5, slogging in my commute, and then dumping almost all my income into daycare, what if I just like stayed home?
Maybe I did it.
Guys, hear me out. This is a revolutionary idea. You just cut all that part out. You don't worry about making so much money because you're not spending as much money on the childcare, and then just watch your own kid, and then maybe do something small on the side, or like a side hustle, or knit hats and sell them on Etsy.
What if we didn't like buy all of this stuff that other people have made? What if in the time that I was here, I just made it myself? Rather than spending 50 quid on a t-shirt, I could just make my own t-shirt. And it was like, I guarantee you there are TikToks that are unironically saying all of this stuff. And they've never heard it before.
Like they just come up with it. Like, guys, you could own chickens and then just pick up the eggs that they lay.
Yeah. What if instead of like divorcing somebody when you're unhappy, you actually worked through your problems and stayed with them forever? Like, that's well done. I mean, rather than being unhappy singly, maybe we could just stay together forever and actually solve whatever the minor problem was that happened to be existing at that time. It's a very Zoomer thing that I'm not sure has ever happened before, and I don't know why it's happened. I think every generation has gone, um, yeah, well, they don't know anything, and I need to make my own mistakes to learn this stuff. But you don't have to make every mistake. You can learn a few and go, okay, probably they were probably right about everything else. I should probably just go from there. Whereas in this, it's like, no, we have to dismantle everything, start from scratch. It's bizarre.
And it's particularly true with relationships because oftentimes the same problem will keep coming up. It doesn't matter if you break up with that person, if you're just someone who jumps around from relationship to relationship. We're human beings, we're all mirrors. Your partner, no matter who they are, is going to show you your patterns, show you what you need to work on. Like you'll keep like that's what they say, like, God will keep serving you up the same lesson until you learn it. Like your partner will keep acting as a mirror, and then until you work on that problem, it's gonna keep coming up. Like, that's why a lot of people have the same fight over and over again, and then maybe you can break up, you date somebody new, and okay, you'll have something else that'll come up. But I think it's one of the reasons people used to justify this whole, like, red pill anti-marriage trend. It's like, "Oh, well, it's only gonna be terrible. It's only gonna th it's just so pessimistic." Like, well, the only ending for this is the woman breaks up with you and takes all your shit and robs you blind, and it's just, okay, well, you can decide to not do that. It doesn't have to be that way. You can be with someone and you both decide you're not gonna screw each other over no matter how bad it gets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the person who is like, yeah, but you shouldn't be able to. Like, I don't think you should be able to leave somebody and screw over their entire life. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, marriage, I could understand getting married, and from that point onwards, you split stuff, right? Because you're now a couple. I don't really get the whole, I've joined your life when you were like 35. And I own everything you've ever, half of everything you've ever done throughout your entire life. That doesn't make sense to me. And so I think there's room for change. Then there's the entire thing of, yeah, but this institution is actually the best thing for society. It's why it's lasted this long. It's why we keep doing it. We've learned over hundreds of years that it's the best thing, and therefore it should be kept. So I'm not for, let's just throw the baby out with the bathwater either, kind of thing. So, but I don't think it's a conversation that society's ready for in either way, which is why we end up in this half house kind of thing. Nobody's willing to go, well, maybe it was wrong, but we can change it. And so it's like, either this is great for me. There's a lot of this is great for me, and so I want to keep it this way and not do anything about it. And then there's a lot of this is bad for me, and so I'm just, you don't really have any choice. It's either if you want to win, you don't play, and so they just go, well, we should get rid of it then because it's not beneficial to me. Like, no, there's probably a halfway house somewhere where both people can benefit. And I get that with Rachel Zegler. There's a Benny Johnson tweet where he says she hates men, hates capitalism, hates family values. In modern society, there's a big thing where everyone loves to think they're unique. I'm so different than everybody else. You can't judge me the same as everyone else. And they just end up the same as the stereotype. And that is the stereotype of like modern Californian Hollywood kind of stories. It's the same. I hate this. I don't like this. I don't like this. This needs to change. And there's never anything beneficial to it. You never go, yeah, but maybe dads are good. I'd like, it just doesn't happen. It's like all of their entertainment is horrible, horrific, awful crap. Secret Invasion literally said we should get wiped off the face of the earth. And I'm like, I don't want to see that for my entertainment. There was a guy who wanted to bring about the apocalypse. And they were like, yeah, well, maybe he's got a point.
It's like, is there a certain percentage of the population? I guess there is a certain percentage of the population that enjoy feeling sorry for themselves, enjoy blaming themselves. I guess it's like this sort of white ally, the apologetic white ally types that are just like, oh my god, just go around apologizing for anything anybody white in history has ever done, and that's how they get their self worth, just by just apologizing. It's so sad to me.
It's definitely a projection of the writers. It's like, this is how they feel. And to be honest, I could understand, like, if I had to walk around a city where I had like a poop tracker on my phone, I could understand why you're like, this is horrible. I don't want to do this anymore. And so they project that into their writing. It used to be, like, if you take Tolkien, he'd been through the world wars, then he came back and he saw England and he saw what it was like. And he lived in the Shire, essentially. And so what he wrote was good versus evil. It was the good winning. It was, this is how I want the world to be, because I've seen the horror and I don't think it should be like that. Whereas I'm not sure the current writers, they've not been through struggle, and so they've only got where they live, and they basically leave their house, walk through a crap hole, go to an office, and then write. And I can understand why everything they write from that is just like horrific, because they don't like themselves, they don't like their family environments, they don't like the city, and they don't like where they work. So everything is horrible, and what is the point?